This is Raythe from Raythe Reign. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 27. The Allure of Change. Valerius stripped off his shirt and let it flutter to the ground as Caden continued to stare at him in disbelief, with mouth opened and cheeks deliciously pink. He reached for the button of his leather pants. Caden's gaze followed his hands, and the boy swallowed deeply. "Caden, clothing, remove it now," Valerius said, as he slid down the leather pants and stepped out of them. The cool air caressed his skin pleasantly. Raziel shook itself, preparing to stretch its wings and fly. I don't understand." Caden licked his lips. Why do we have to get, naked?" "Because otherwise you will have to ride home naked afterwards. Shifting is hell on clothes," Valerius said gently. "So take them off now, or end up not having any clothes at all until you get home." Caden didn't appear to hear him. He was staring at Valerius's cock. The pink tongue slipped out of the sweet lips and licked them again. Caden, shifters learn that nudity is not related to sex," Valerius remarked. He put his hands on his hips. Caden was still fixated on his cock. Despite Valerius's words, his cock began to stir. "Not always related to sex, but it is important for you to be focusing on me as your teacher and not. Caden, are you listening to me?" Valerius pinched the top of his nose, even as warmth pooled in his groin as the young man's evident approval of his naked form had his body being disruly. "Caden, you should look at my face, not at my cock." Caden's head jerked up to his face, which turned nuclear red. Caden's lips parted, but no words exited his mouth. The wind blew from behind him, and the musky scent of arousal came to Valerius's nostrils. His cock started to stir again, and the memory of the caress and the SUV returned to him. Valerius almost raised his hand to his cheek now, as if he could grasp Caden's hand back. "I'm sorry, oh God, what the hell is wrong with me?" Caden's head was lowered and his cheeks were still burning. He then mumbled, "You're really beautiful." That sweetness should not have moved Valerius. Inexperience in a lover was actually not sexy. They did not know what they were doing. They were embarrassed about talking about their desires, let alone finding out about his. They came early, having no stamina. Everything impressed them because it was new and for no other reason. Yet, Valerius was aroused. Yet, he was touched. Yet, he absolutely could not get involved with this boy because it would never be casual for Caden. So Valerius had to ignore his body's yearnings. "And pretend that you don't have any others?" That voice in his head sounded so like Shione's that he actually looked for her. But she wasn't there. It was just him and Caden and his own conscience. Raziel said nothing. It merely regarded Caden and the white dragon spirit with not exactly suspicion, but a touch of unease. Raziel did not know what to expect from them, Valerius realized. While the white dragon spirit was no match for Raziel in a fight, Raziel was still afraid. "What are you afraid of, Raziel?" Valerius snapped. To his surprise, Raziel answered him. "Change." Valerius was too stunned to say anything for a moment. It was a simple and complex word, change, full of possibilities and pitfalls. "Life is about change, Raziel. You know this, both of us do," Valerius reminded the black dragon spirit. "Our lives are not the same as when we first joined. They are not even the same as before the war." "Have these changes been good?" Raziel asked. Valerius wasn't sure if it was a rhetorical question or if the spirit was truly asking him his opinion. "What do you think?" Valerius asked back. "I think that this change will be different than all the others. The white dragon will change us." Raziel answered and hid between its wings. This unnerved Valerius. But then again, did he not feel the same? Had he not, since Caden's appearance, felt like he was holding back a flood by putting a finger in the dike? There was nothing controlled about this young man, and he knew that keeping Caden from upending everything was likely impossible. But he was still trying. "If we are a part of this young man's life, we can guide where some of this change takes us," Valerius said. And wasn't that what he was doing right here and now? Teaching Caden to shift and fly? "I do not know if I wish this or not." Raziel retreated deeper into its wings, "But change comes like the wind. There is no stopping it." "You look like you're trying to hide from it," Valerius pointed out. "Delay it. But even this will not work for long," Raziel admitted, and then all that could be seen of its face were the red glowing eyes. "I'm really sorry. Seriously, Valerius, I didn't mean to stare," Caden wailed. You have no idea how you look, do you? You can't just drop your trousers and expect people not to stare. I mean, seriously, you're built big all over, and I just couldn't quite not see you when compared to myself." "You were comparing the size of our cocks." Valerius tilted his head to the side. "Everybody does it." "Really? Perhaps those who have insecurity." "I am not insecure about the size of my member," Caden squeaked. "Well, then why don't you show me? We can compare them side by side." Valerius knew he should not have said that because his own cock jumped at the thought of being right beside Caden's. "You did not just say that." Caden looked up at him, but then quickly looked down. "You did say that. Are you teasing me? I mean, teasing is probably the wrong word, but with you, I never know. You're hot. You're cold. You are utterly perplexing." "I am the perplexing one." Valerius's eyebrows rose. "You are like no one else," Caden said. "Of course I am not. That makes me unique, not perplexing." "Well, I find you strange," Caden said. Valerius laughed. He strode over to the young man who was shading his eyes with one hand as if it were midday instead of midnight. He stopped a hand's breadth away so that Caden knew he was there. He could likely see Valerius's toes that were flexing in the cool, dew-soaked grass. "You're really close to me," Caden said, still not looking up. "Yes." "And you didn't put your pants back on?" "No." "Why?" "Because I am here to help you shift, remember, not make love to you," Valerius said, but his cock said something different. He ignored it. Caden drew in a sharp breath. Color flooded the young man's cheeks. Valerius nearly touched that soft skin and drew a finger down that blush. "Make love, huh? Not just have sex? Wild, unrestrained banging?" Caden said, still shielding his eyes. Valerius shook his head. "You know nothing about, what did you call it? Wild, unrestrained banging. I am positive about that." "I'm not a virgin." Caden's head snapped up. He focused on Valerius's face as if he were holding onto it for dear life. "And you made me say that so it sounds stupid." Valerius's eyebrows rose. Yes, you make me say stupid things because you make me nervous, especially when you're Caden gestured to his body. "You're naked more than anyone I know." "You're just learning about shifters. Nakedness is normal. You must decouple it from sex," Valerius said, even as his cock twitched as he looked into those beautiful large eyes. "You will become quite unaware of it in time. So, why don't you strip and then let's fly?" Valerius was keenly aware of Caden's body heat. He was keenly aware of Caden's body overall. How would he react to Caden being naked? He was about to find out. "You're right," Caden said suddenly. "Desiring someone is not how you look at their bodies, but their eyes. He then turned his back on Valerius and started to strip. Valerius stood there, blinking. He watched as Caden pulled off his hoodie, one of the werewolf ones from Wally's shop, only to get stuck. Caden muttered and shifted, but his elbows were firmly wedged in the bottom waistband. Valerius watched this for a moment before grumbling. He grasped the hoodie and pulled it off. Caden's blonde hair stuck up in every direction. The young man drew in a deep breath as he turned back to face Valerius. Thanks, I was a little... It's new, so it's tight. So, yeah. Caden crossed and uncrossed his arms over his bare chest. That just drew attention to it. Valerius's eyes skimmed over the revealed silky skin. Caden was nicely muscled with lovely definition. His nipples were a dark shade of pink and not brown like Valerius's, but that was likely due to Caden's coloring in general being so much lighter than him. There was a trail of dark gold hair starting just below his belly button and disappearing beneath the waistband of his jeans. There was a slight gap between the well-worn jeans and tanned skin. Caden's stomach muscles trembled slightly. Valerius reached for the button and zipper of Caden's pants. Caden sucked in his stomach, likely involuntarily. This isn't sexual, right? You're not trying to make love to me. Valerius's voice trembled like his stomach muscles did. Was he laughing? I do not know what I am doing with you. Valerius's hands paused. His fingers were beneath the waistband, the backs of them pressed against the warmth of Caden's velvety skin. He could feel the slight rough brush of Caden's pubic hairs. You not knowing what you're doing? I can't believe you're admitting that. Really? Caden was laughing now, but out of nervousness, maybe excitement too. The scent of arousal was heavy in the air, but Valerius was not sure if it was his or Caden's or both of them. It could have been the last, probably was the last. Valerius's breathing sped up, and his heart raced. He knew Caden heard these things in him as the young man's head lifted and their eyes met again. What do you see? Valerius asked. In my eyes? Why did I ask that? Valerius thought. Because you wish for him to tell you what you feel, Raziel muttered. No responsibility that way. I take responsibility, Raziel. You must always be forced to do it, Raziel said. Valerius was stung by Raziel's words, but then again, he knew that few things stung more than the ones that held a kernel of truth. I hope you are enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. A lot of people have asked us how they can support the podcast. Of course, we would love you to become a member of RaytheReign.com, where the Dragon's Reign serial is being written. But we also have some fun merchandise for the story, from posters to socks to journals. If you'd like to check out some Dragon's Reign merch, a link is in the description down below. I have Shioni to harangue me about my desire or lack thereof to rule. Valerius glared at the spirit. I do not need you to lecture me. Besides, it would be the height of hypocrisy for you to do so, considering you would have us be alone, the whole world empty but for us. I know what I want. You pretend not to, Raziel said, and then completely hid in its wings. Valerius? Caden's forehead was furrowed. His gaze was flickering over Valerius's face. Confusion and concern reigned there. What is it? What's upsetting you? Valerius opened his mouth and then shut it. He quickly removed his hands from Caden's skin and turned on his heel. Finish undressing and meet me on the outcropping. Valerius did not look back to see Caden's expression or to listen to his questions. He couldn't answer any of them. Raziel was right. He did not know what he wanted. Raziel might have wanted an empty world where they could cruise the skies forever unmolested, with none calling out to them from below. But he did not. But what kind of world did he want? What kind of life? What kind of change? His feet were used to walking in all types of ground, from hot asphalt to rocky ground to soft earth. Caden was not as used to walking barefoot as he was. The young man was making hissing sounds as he followed Valerius up the rocky outcropping to the top. It was about 20 feet up from the soft sward below. So, what are we doing up here? Caden asked from beside him. Valerius did not look at him, even as he wanted to inspect every single inch of Caden's naked form. He wanted to know it. Why? He felt he should. Caden was in his territory. He was another dragon shifter. Valerius should know him down to his bones. Even though Caden was no physical threat, he needed to understand him. Valerius tilted his head up towards the moon. Close your eyes and bathe in the moonlight. Let it pierce you. He saw Caden do so out of the corner of his open eyes. The young man was silent for all of about 5 seconds. How do I let the moonlight pierce me exactly? Valerius sighed. Though we are not governed by the cycle of the moon as the old tales tell about werewolves, it does have an influence on us nonetheless. Caden's eyes were still closed. His lips parted, and to Valerius's pleasant surprise, he murmured, My body feels light. Good. Valerius turned towards him then. Now, allow the moonlight to seep into your bones. Make them light as bird bones, then lighter still so that they are almost not there at all. His eyes drifted down Caden's moonlight-gilded form. His golden skin was now silvered under the moon and stars. The night breeze was like a lover's caress through his blonde hair that was almost white in the starlight. Caden's cock, while nowhere near as large or thick as Valerius's, was perfectly proportioned. It was slightly erect in its nest of dark gold curls. Caden was beautiful. So very beautiful. I think I feel that, Caden breathed out. Excellent. Now, let the moonlight sink into your core, Valerius said, the words leaving his lips without any real meaning. He was transfixed by Caden. Oh, okay. Caden rocked back and forth at his feet like a little kid rocking in anticipation. Valerius sighed softly as he took this in, but then found a smile twitching on his lips. Things are never boring with Caden around, are they, Raziel? He shakes us out of our doldrums, Valerius murmured. He is beautiful. Raziel repeated his earlier words. The White One is as well. Yes, Raziel. Imagine us flying together. Imagine our wings nearly brushing. Imagine turning our heads and seeing them beside us. Raziel's head emerged from its wings. Yes, that would not be so bad, would it, Raziel? One other person in the endless, empty world, Valerius asked softly. Perhaps not. Raziel's wings unfolded completely, and it flapped them once. I think my core is soaked with the moonlight, Caden informed him. All right. Now it is time to step forward, but keep your eyes closed, Valerius said. Frown lines appeared on Caden's forehead. But the edge of the outcrop is there, like a foot or two, so if I step too far forward, I'll fall, Caden said, frowning more. Valerius leaned in and said into Caden's ear, On the contrary, you will fly. You are a dragon shifter, remember? Caden nodded, but uncertainly. I can feel the wind. I can hear it whistling over the edge. Do not be afraid. I will catch you if you fall, Valerius promised, and somehow the words meant more than they did on the surface. Okay, I could do this. If you make sure to catch me, Caden added quickly. I will, but let's not consider that as an option. You will walk off the edge and you will shift. The moonlight in your bones and core will allow everything to move and reform effortlessly, Valerius told him, trying to explain something that was very difficult to capture in words. Caden has done this before, Valerius thought. He will be able to do it again. This should just be a formality. Right, moonlight. Allure wants to fly, so this will be easy. Caden's eyes were still shut, but there was a tenseness to his jaw. Valerius touched that twitching muscle, and Caden's eyelids would have flown open, but Valerius put a hand over them. Step forward, Caden. I will not let you be hurt, no matter what. Caden turned towards him, but Valerius kept his hand over those brilliant eyes. You mean that? You really mean that? Yes, Now stop stalling, Valerius said. Caden flashed him a grin. I'm all turned around now. I don't know where the edge is. Point me in the right direction. Of course. Valerius turned Caden so that he was facing the very edge of the outcropping. The wind blew against his skin. Caden shivered and drew his arms around his body. You won't feel the cold if you shift, Caden. Right. Besides, I'm like an ice dragon, so the cold should be my friend, Caden laughed. Indeed. Now, step forward. Valerius released him and took a few steps backwards to allow Caden the room he needed to make the leap, and then turn into the white dragon. Valerius held his breath as he waited to see Caden shift in front of him for the first time. Caden's mouth opened and shut as he took in a deep breath to center himself. Then he took one step. His toes were sticking off of the edge of the outcropping. They wiggled, and Valerius saw Caden grow stiff. Fear caused trembling, but Caden took a second step, right off of the edge. Caden did not fly. He plummeted. Valerius dove off the edge after him, unable to shift because there was no room. He grabbed Caden around the waist and twisted them in midair so that he was beneath and Caden was above him. He curled around Caden protectively. When they landed, he was on the bottom. He hit and skidded a few feet down the outcropping. The jolt was jarring, but did not hurt him. He was saved from physical hurt in his human form as he would have been in his dragon one. But he still had the air pushed out of him by the fall, so he was silent for a moment. Valerius? Valerius! Caden cried as he moved frantically against Valerius's form. Are you okay? Oh my God! I didn't shift! I must not have let the moonlight in! I can't believe— Caden, Valerius said softly as a young man's lithe body moved unconsciously sensually against his own, and his cock, which had never really gone to sleep, awoke as if he'd lit a fire under it. I can't believe I didn't shift if you hadn't caught me, Caden. His voice dipped into a deep rumble. His legs parted and Caden slipped in between them effortlessly, almost as if he was meant to be there. Their cocks lined up alongside one another. Caden let out a gasp, but kept talking as if he were under a curse. I'm responsible if you're hurt and Caden, I am not hurt. Neither of us are hurt. I would never let you be hurt, Valerius said as he met those blue eyes. He was lost in them. So you're okay? Caden asked. I do not know what I am. With you, everything is uncertain, Valerius murmured. No matter what I do, what I think, what I believe, you are change incarnate. Those blue eyes widened. Valerius felt the solid thump of Caden's heart joining his, and then he was cupping Caden's face. The skin was silky smooth with just a hint of stubble along the jaw, and his mouth, like nothing else, plump and lush and lovely beyond measure. Valerius leaned in and kissed Caden as if his life depended upon it. I hope you enjoyed this week's chapter. Just a reminder that if you join Raythe Reign as a member, the membership is 15 to 20 episodes ahead of the free podcast. If you'd like to join and listen to all those extra podcasts, not to mention getting access to the other stories and manga on Raythe Reign, a link is down below.